Hey YouTube, Jack here. I'm going to start a series today on low carb eating and weight loss, and I'm going to be tracking my weight loss. This is the first in that series. I probably should have started about 12 days ago. Just to let you all know, about 12 days ago I decided to take this really serious this time and ask myself a question. Why have you done this and had good results but not great as far as keeping the weight off and actually hitting all the way down to the target weight? And what are the mistakes that maybe you've made, even though you think you know what you're doing? And I want to be clear, I'm not telling anybody what they need to do. I'm telling you what I'm doing and what I've learned during this series, and it's up to you to do whatever you want with that information. Let's start out with the results so far. Over 12 days, I have lost 11 pounds. I have eaten like a pig, and I'm going to be in these daily vlogs telling you what I ate the day before and the daily weight loss or gain, because you won't always lose weight every day, especially once you take off, the first, let's say 20% of what you're trying to lose. It'll slow down, at least in my experience in the past. Anyway, I actually started tracking this with a spreadsheet on the 17th when I'd already lost about 4 pounds. On that day, I was 243.3 pounds, and I weighed myself empty stomach in the morning. And always the same way, the same time, in your drawers or whatever. And you can weigh yourself with your clothes on, whatever you want to do, but I recommend the morning. Always the same thing before you have breakfast or whatever, and after you've used the facilities. And then if you always weigh yourself with a shirt on, always weigh yourself with a shirt on. So you're consistent in the differences. I believe in weighing yourself, not yourself, plus 3 cups of coffee and breakfast. So there you go on that. Anyway, this morning I was 236.6. So since I've been tracking it over about 8 days, I guess now, I've lost 6.7 pounds according to Excel, and Excel never lies if you give it the right information. And between yesterday and today, I lost 1.4 pounds. Yesterday for breakfast, I've eaten, it's pretty much the same thing through this whole thing. I'm going to start adding some variety to breakfast, but I've made a whole bunch of jalapeno garlic breakfast sausage. So I'm just having some of that fried up with 2 eggs. My wife makes that for me every morning. It's really easy. It's good quality pork, and it's the ingredients I put in it, and I know that it's very low carb, even though the garlic brings some carbs. We'll talk about that with the tips section here in a second. I also ate for lunch, I made snails that I buy in a can. A lot of people want to post it on Facebook after I get them. Just get them in the grocery store. They're Helix snails from France. And I'll put a link in the video notes, depending on whether this is YouTube or Facebook. But I'll put a link in the video notes where you can get them on Amazon. But unless you want to buy them by like the case, just check your local grocery store. Try them there first. But I made those. I did a white wine reduction. With garlic and butter and some other stuff, and even used a little bit of potato. I'm going to talk about, again, not screwing yourself here in a second, but I used 1 ounce of potato, which is about 5 carbohydrates. And I'm not going to get specific, but I'm telling you to get specific when you do the math and use a scale. Because, if you think, well, 1 ounce, so you pick up one of those little baby potatoes and throw it on a scale. One of them might be 3/4 of an ounce, the other one might be 2. So what I did is I weighed out that much, some chili peppers, and sauteed that and reduced the wine down and threw the snails in. And then at the end, wilted the arugula and pushed everything to the side so I could wilt the arugula really, really quick, just till it barely wilts, pull it back out, put it on the plate, put everything on it. That came out to about 8 carbs, and I'm trying to stay 7 to 10 and more toward the 7. But I feel like I was probably under the 8 because I didn't use all of the sauce, and a significant portion of the carbs from that was from the white wine. A couple carbs anyway. Used about 4 ounces of white wine. And then for dinner, I ate these giant, I mean huge, like the size of a big ribeye, about 1.25 inches thick pork chop from a red wattle hog that was pasture raised from a friend of mine that I got those from. And that was with green beans and some pumpkin from pumpkin that I grew on the property. Again, had to weigh that, and I went with 4 ounces of pumpkin. And understand that when I do dinner, I'm making for 2 people, so it's split between 2 people, Dorothy and I. Some green beans and some celery. Now, there might have been some other stuff there, but that was pretty much the core of it. And people ask, well, you get hungry or crave carbs. I don't know, when you're eating like that, it's hard to crave anything. You might crave them before you eat, but after you're done eating, you eat a pork chop that's about, I'm not exaggerating, that big and that thick, and you eat that whole pork chop, I don't think you can crave anything after that. And since really getting religious about this and getting motivated over the results, really, because it's easy to get motivated on results when you're losing 1/2 to 1.5 pounds a day, somewhere in there on average. And just to be clear, I did gain weight one day, and that may have been more with a variance of weighing. This is why I started to say every day. But on the 18th, I was 240.8, and on the 19th, I was 242. That was a 1.2 pound gain. I was still down 1.3 for the week, and then it went right back to losing weight. So, yeah, you can definitely have days where you go up a little bit. What you want is to look at the overall trend. And when you're eating like this and losing weight, you stay motivated. The first couple of days, I did kind of feel nibbly after dinner and went into the protein and protein. Pepperoni and cheese. And I'll talk about that in a future one of these. But you can go overboard with stuff like that. And I'll talk about that. Because calories don't matter, but they do matter. We'll get to that. Because the main thing I want to tell you today, and this is so dadgone important, and I want to make sure I look up the episode number. And I'll put a link to make sure I get you to it as well if you want to just click over. But you got to weigh everything. And you got to check everything. You know, a lot of people throw a couple ounces of soy sauce into a marinade. Well, it's 1.5-ish, 1.25, something like that. It's about 1.2 carbs per tablespoon. And that's not a lot. And by the time you get to kind of a maintenance phase, it's not a huge deal. But if you're trying to restrict your carbs to 7 and you throw 2 tablespoons of soy sauce in something, and I know some people hate soy. I'm not hating on soy at all here. I'm just, right now, this minute, I'm only on carbs. Well, what about garlic? You know, people say, well, a garlic clove is no carbs at all. Well, how is it? A little bitty one, little fiddly ones, or is it a great big fat one? Garlic is about 8 carbs to the ounce. I'm doing that off my head, so it might be 7, it might be, I don't know. You got to check. There's a little bit of fiber in there. But man, if you're using a lot of garlic in something, you need to think about that. When I made my sausage, I threw fennel seed in there, quite a bit of it. There's a little bit of carbs. Not a huge amount, but you got to count them. I really recommend, my first big tip for you on this series, get a kitchen scale, and especially when you're in kind of an intervention phase. And I'm doing protein power. I don't care if it's protein power, keto, primal, paleo. I don't care what it is. And I don't care what your personal carb restriction is. When you're in that first phase and you're trying to take off significant weight, you can't cheat at all. You can't cheat at all. And the only way to do that is to make sure you're not cheating by accident. And I can tell you over the years, as I've lost weight and gained it back doing this, the biggest mistake that I've made is not weighing everything. And significantly, I've been going over the carbs, believing myself to have been a good boy. It's one thing when you cheat and you know you cheated. We'll talk more about cheating as a pitfall too in a bit. But man, when you think you're doing it right, you think I had 7 carbs with that meal and you had 12, and then since you kept it to, like, you think you had 4 for lunch, and you're like, I can have a couple extra for dinner. And you do that across a week and you end up consuming 20, 30 carbs or more that you didn't even think you did, that you didn't count. That's what gets you. Get a scale. I'll put a link to the one I recommend in the video notes, again, depending on where you're watching this. And tune in. This one went about 8.5 minutes. From now on, they're going to be about 4 to 6 tops. This was an intro one, so a little longer.